In today's video, I wanted to begin my adventure and go through the Fighters Guild storyline featured in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered. A little over a year ago, I actually released a video of me discussing the main details and events for the questline. It was a little over an hour, straight to the point and easily digestible. However, with the release of the remaster, I've been eager to visit some of the storylines, and some viewers have been asking for a fully fleshed out Fighters Guild video. This would include all of the dialogue and a little bit more of my personal experiences as well as opinions on the story's events. Plus, with the new graphics, voiceovers, and combat style, I'm really curious to see what's different from the original. So, for my own sake, as well as for a select few commenters, I decided to go through the questline in a little more depth. If that's something that interests you, then sit back, relax, and let's enjoy a tale from the Elder Scrolls. The Fighters Guild is one of the 5 main joinable factions within Oblivion. It's among the easier ones to actually enlist in. It's not as popular as, say, the Dark Brotherhood or the Thieves Guild, but I will say it has its charms, and overall, the pacing of the story is pretty good, at least in my opinion. If this is your first time ever playing Oblivion with the release of the remaster, there's a chance you wouldn't have known how to actually sign up with them. Asking around for rumors in any city might net you some guild-related dialogue. Of course, in my case, the rumor is rampant when I'm not looking for it, and when I'm actively searching, it's nowhere to be found. All they really say though is that capable fighters should consider joining the guild if they're looking for work. Each major city, barring the capital and Kvatch, has a guild hall. Why the Imperial City doesn't have one is beyond me. If I had to guess, it's probably due to lore reasons, as there's less work for them there. Most contracts have members venturing off to nearby dungeons and out in the wilderness. However, it could have been a really neat opportunity to have an elaborate headquarters for the fighters, like the Mages Guild has for the Arcane University, and it also could have added more life and depth to the faction itself. In any case, there are only 3 cities that have the ability to actually add you to the guild registry.
Looking for adventure? The Fighters Guild is a good place to start. If you're looking to join up, you should speak with Velena Danton in Coral, Azan in Anvil, or Burzgrow Kosh in Cheydinhal.
Since I was already in Anvil, it's like I knew to come here first or something, I spoke with Azan about joining the faction.
What can I do for you? Looking for some work? If so, the Fighters Guild can always use able-bodied new members. The Fighters Guild is always looking for new members. If you've got a clean record and don't have a bounty on your head, we may be able to use you. Are you interested in joining? Fine. You are now an associate in the Fighters Guild. For contracts, speak either with me or with Burzgrow Kosh in Cheydinhal. Good luck to you. A contract for you? I think I've got something that suits your experience. Arvina Phyllis has some problem with rats in her house. Yes, rats. I'm sure she can explain it to you better than I. She lives here in Anvil. Go and talk to her. Good luck.
This starts the very first quest, or one of them, and is one that's such a classic to the Fighters Guild itself, a rat problem. Ever since I went through the Fighters Guild storyline in Morrowind, I've developed a new appreciation for this mission. Exterminator in the Elder Scrolls 3 is pretty similar to this one, but you could tell that Bethesda wanted to give it a unique spin. What's more, while this is the first quest I chose to start with, you could have easily gone and spoke with Burzgrow Kosh for a whole different start to your Fighters Guild journey. This idea of branching quest lines is something that's unique to the Mages Guild as well as this faction, yet both do it a little bit differently. Before speaking with Thalos, I always find it worth it to loot the local guild halls. Now that I'm a member, I have access to weapons, armor, and other items that can give me a good head start for the upcoming journey. I also have a free place to rest my head if I need to level up or regenerate my bars. When finished, I left the Anvil HQ and legged it down the street over to Arvena's house. Going on inside, I spoke with the distressed Dunmer.
You must be from the Fighters Guild. Good. I have a problem. It has to do with the rats in my basement. That's right. Rats. In my basement. And something has been killing them. It's horrible. My poor babies. You must do something. I don't know what I'd do without them. Their little pink noses, their scaly little tails. Oh, please get to the basement and find out what's happening.
Right off the bat, I noticed that they changed the voiceover for Thalos. The former voice actor did a crazy good job at making Arvena sound kooky, but I feel like the new one gives a more convincing and distressed performance. Descending to the basement, you'll spot a mountain lion hunting down Thalos' pet rats. At early levels, the lone lion isn't that tricky to take down. Its health drops rapidly, and even something as simple as a bound dagger does the trick. Once it's been defeated, your journal update will mention that it's probably getting in through a hole in the wall. I don't think I've ever actually went and investigated the hole from down in the basement, but I'm pretty sure it's something you can lay eyes on in the original too. Once things were wrapped up here, I returned to Thalos for the next steps.
Well, what have you found? Did you take care of my babies? What was going on down there? A mountain lion? In my basement? But how? Oh, that's not possible. But it happened. Oh, what if there are more? What if it wasn't alone? Where there's one, there will be more. Find Pinarus Inventius. He's a hunter and knows this area inside and out. He'll know what to do.
I know this is probably a really minor detail, but for this portion of the quest, I'm fairly certain I've always found Pinarus in his home. I don't recall ever seeing him beyond the city walls, let alone roaming around the streets of Anvil.
Pinarus Inventius, hunter, woodsman, and marksman at your service. Mountain lions? Here! Odd. If they're around, I can find them. Come with me. A hunt will do us good and maybe make that old nut feel better.
Walking with Inventius, now's probably a good time to briefly explain my character build. I'm playing as a high elf, took the mage as my birth sign, and I'm experimenting with a custom stealth mage class. I use destruction and conjuration for offense with an emphasis on bound weapons. At a low level, I'm relying heavily on the dagger. I sneak around dungeons, and when things undoubtedly go sour, I have restoration and light armor for defense. In my mind, the vision for the build was perfect, but I hit a lot of snags as time goes on. Eventually, Pinarus stops at a little nook and speaks with me.
If they're out here, they'll be in this area. I can't imagine there are more than 4 of them. Let's take care of this.
Literally walking into the lion's den, there are 4 beasts waiting for me and the hunter to stroll on in. Similar to Thalos' basement, one-on-one, these starving mountain lions are very manageable for low-level players. However, when they're all grouped up like this, they can prove to be quite the challenge. They hit hard, overwhelm you, and it takes a bit for all of their health bars to go down. Luckily, Pinarus is able to deal most of the damage, and if you play your cards right, he's able to tank most of the hits too.
I think that'll be all of them. Can't imagine more in this area. You can go tell Arvena this is all taken care of. Good hunting.
With the climax of the action taken care of, I returned to Thalos and informed her of the good news. She didn't take it as well as I would have hoped though.
You've got to take care of those mountain lions! You think you've gotten rid of them all? You do? Well, you haven't! There's one in my basement right now! Go get it!
History repeats itself and I'm sent back down to the depths of the home. Something I forgot about and recently discovered is that if you let the lion kill the rats, or you yourself decide to kill the vermin, it outright ends the quest as a failure. Not the biggest of deals in the grand scheme of things, but it's probably not also how you want your tendency with the guild to start. Again, not much of a challenge with the beast, and there shouldn't be any more coming through the hole, at least for now.
Thank the gods you killed that thing! Oh, this is ridiculous. Someone's out to get me, to get my poor babies. I'll bet it's that Quillweave next door. She's the one. She's never liked me or my sweet little pets. I know it's her. I've even seen her sneaking around in back of my house at night. She thinks she's so smart. She and all the other women. I'll show her. I want you to keep an eye on her. Find out what she's up to.
Interestingly, even though each stage of this quest is straightforward and it's an introduction to the guild, I would almost say that this is one of the longest missions for the faction. There are just so many steps to it, and a lot of them can't be skipped. Meanwhile, most of the other ones are go here, do this, come back. Upon finding Quillweave, I asked her about the mountain lions.
My name's Quillweave. I've had some success selling stories about the lives of the lower and criminal classes. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not sure what you're accusing me of, but don't do it without any proof.
Of course, that probably wasn't going to work. However, waiting until midnight, Quillweave, who was still very much in public, dropped low to the ground and suspiciously moved towards Thalos' home. I love it when you're supposed to tail someone who's sneaking and the game doesn't care if they see you or not. It ruins the whole idea of it, but it's also pretty funny to watch. After witnessing the Argonian place some meat outside of Arvena's exposed basement, I confronted her once more.
Yes? What can I do for you? You what? Well, I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about. I would never go skulking about. Fine, you've got me. I figured if I left some rotten meat outside, the nasty little things would come out, and the guards would take care of them. Mountain lions? In her basement? I just wanted to lure her vermin outside. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, except the rats. Please, don't tell her. And if you can keep this our little secret, I can make it worth your while. There's a bit about acrobatics I can teach you. Give it some thought.
The end phase of this quest is pretty free, and the player can choose how they want things wrapped up. Tell the truth and set Arvena against Quillweave, or cover for the Argonian and keep her deeds under wraps. Exploring both, I first started with ratting out Weave.
So, did you follow her? She's behind it, isn't she? Tell me what you found out! I knew it! That swit! Oh, I'll get her. You just wait. Must have taken some fast talking to get her to confess. Maybe I can teach you a little bit more about how to talk to people. And of course, here's the payment for the contract. Thank you.
With this outcome, Thalos handed me level-dependent gold, in my case only 100, and boosted my speechcraft by 1 point. Reverting back, I now chose to cover for Quill.
She didn't, huh? But you've taken care of the problem, and I suppose that's what counts. Thanks for that. Here's your payment.
Thalos still pays me for my work, and now I can go and tell Weave that Arvena doesn't know.
So, you didn't sell me out. I appreciate that. Well, I said I'd make it worth your while. So let me teach you a little something. You've got to be light on your feet to make it around here, and that's something I'm good at. Maybe you can be too. Take care.
With this option, my acrobatics skill increases as opposed to speechcraft. Honestly, at lower levels, it really doesn't matter all that much which option you choose, as both skills can be leveled by practical means anyways. Also, even by choosing to tell on Quill, there doesn't seem to be any repercussions for the Argonian, and Thalos never takes her revenge. In any case, like I said before, this mission is probably one of the more thorough ones that the Fighters Guild offers to the player. It's more than mindless violence and a simple fetch quest. With that, thus ends the quest, A Rat Problem. With the adventure only beginning, I returned to the hall and increased my overall level to 3. 2 more and I'm good for a raise in terms of reward payouts. For now, I know it doesn't seem like it with what I spent my virtue points on, but I'm mostly throwing them into agility and intelligence. However, in order to get better use out of my blade skill, I should start splashing over into strength a bit. When ready, I ascended to the top floor of the hall and spoke again with Azani.
I'll need someone who's at least an apprentice for this job. Maybe you're ready for advancement? You've done well so far. I hereby promote you to apprentice. Good luck. Looking for more work, eh? Good. Got a contract for you. I'd like you to go talk to Norbert Lels, here in Anvil. He runs Lels Quality Merchandise here in Anvil. He's been having problems with break-ins, though, and he's hired us to put a stop to it.
Something that's really different between Morrowind and Oblivion is the guild promotion mechanic. In Morrowind, the stewards won't force you into a promotion, and you can go through a good chunk of the contracts at a low rank. However, when you get blocked from progressing onwards due to being too low of a rank, it's not as easy to get that promotion, exactly as how it is in Oblivion. Your major skills and correlating attributes need to be a certain level, or else there's nothing else for you. I wonder why Bethesda took that away in Oblivion. I'm assuming for accessibility. No matter the build, players can freely join whichever faction they wanted, but who really knows? In any case, Lel's quality merchandise is out on the docks, and heading on inside, I spoke with the proprietor.
Greetings! Welcome to Lel's Quality Merchandise. We have a wide range of goods to suit your needs. Oh, and perhaps you saw the sign outside? A slight mistake, you know. Bit of bad luck there. So, what can I do for you? I've lost a great deal of merchandise over the last few months. I keep replacing it, but they keep stealing it. New locks on the doors be damned. They always come at night after I've gone to bed. Maybe a mage transports them inside. You can just stay in the shop overnight. Good luck. I'm going to wait at the flowing bowl until this mess is settled. I know I can trust you to keep the place safe.
I've always thought that if you wanted an easy score for the Thieves Guild, doing this quest sets you up perfectly. Norbert leaves the shop, and you can take whatever items you want without having to worry about getting caught. I will say though, I've never encountered Mirabelle Monet in this store before, and she doesn't seem like she wants to leave. For a thief's sake, the security is a problem. However, for what was to come, she was the unsung hero. Waiting past 11 PM, the three men spawn in and skulk around the shop. After a little bit, they catch on as to what's happening here and arm themselves. Normally, for this fight, especially at a lower level, I've always had trouble. And you know what? I still found it a bit tricky, but Mirabelle Monet was insistent on staying in the shop overnight too. She actually came to my aid for the battle, making it a 2v3. With the addition of a conjured skeleton, the playing field was even. Inevitably though, things got hairy, so I decided to move the fight outside. Getting ready for a jog over to the guards, I was surprised to see that no one followed me. Worried that they slaughtered Monet, I went on back inside, and it turns out she was holding her ground just fine. After killing the Bosmer, together we worked on and took out the Dunmer, ending the siege of Lel's quality merchandise. Mirabelle deserves the reward and fame more than I do, but unfortunately for her, the game isn't that advanced yet. With the job wrapped up, I went next door to the Flowing Bowl and informed Norbert of our success.
Were you able to take care of my problem with break-ins? You've gotten them? Wonderful. But their names are familiar to me. All of those men have worked for me. Amazing. I even trusted them to open up the shop in the mornings. I can't imagine what turned them to a life of crime. Sad. Well, here's your payment.
I've always loved the detail that the thieves were all previous employees of Norbert. I've never been able to tell if they robbed him because it was an easy score and pre-planned, or if it was based on revenge for poor working conditions. I've always assumed the latter, but could be either or. With that, thus ends the quest, The Unfortunate Shopkeeper. Returning to Azan, he told me that he had nothing left to give me right now.
I don't have anything for anyone in your rank. Check with Burrs Grokash in Shadenhall. He might have something.
I'm still not quite used to the new NPC models. Some are sort of close to their original appearance in Oblivion, while others are a far cry off. Azan is a character who looks just completely different to their counterpart, and it's pretty staggering. Switching gears, I fast traveled over to the city of Shadenhall and sought out Burrs Grokash at the Guildhall. In my experience, Burrs can be really difficult to locate at times because his schedule has him wandering all over the city, and often there's no quest marker pointing to him.
You here looking for work, meat? Maybe you want a contract? I suppose I've got something for you. We need a weapons shipment delivered to Desolate Mine. That's your job.
A simple yet not so sweet delivery. Desolate Mine is a short walk northwest of the city. Something I'll get into in just a bit is that there's also a way to fail this quest. It's a little more obvious than the previous quests, but still not something you'd expect on your first try. Outside of the mine is where you get familiarized with the antagonists of this mission, goblins. Heading on inside of the cave and down the first little stretch, I laid eyes on my stranded guildmates.
You must be the reinforcement from the guild. Good. I hope you brought weapons for us. Horrible creatures. And they've made this mine too dangerous for the workers. We're going to have to get rid of them. You've made it, and just in time. We've got trouble with goblins here. I'll take the bow. You give the weapons to my other 2 men.
For this portion, I've always enjoyed giving the elf and the orc their unfavored weapons, but I want them to live, so I rolled with their requests.
Excellent! I long to sink a blade into some goblin flesh. A blade? Fantastic! Let us take the fight to these vile creatures.
Good. I need a weapon. I'm looking forward to bashing some skulls in. A hammer. Excellent. Good for bashing in puny goblin skulls.
Once the weapons were handed out, I received the journal update, and the 4 of us began to roll through the mines. I never really thought much on why these guild members came to the cave unarmed. If they were specifically sent here, it's pretty dumb of them to show up without any arms. However, if this was a scene that they stumbled onto and had been keeping the goblins at bay with their bare fists, then I highly respect it. Before I mentioned there was a way to fail the quest, and I also mentioned that my guildmates could die during the fighting. Well, putting 2 and 2 together, you're going to have to do some babysitting for this one. To also add some spice to your efforts, the trio often splits up and 1 or more will run ahead into the dungeon, aggroing more than a handful of goblins. The UESP recommends to stay with Rihanna, as the bow renders her fairly defenseless. For my first attempt, we cleared out the mines, but the Redguard told me that Elidor died somewhere in the tunnels. This didn't fail the quest, but it would have lessened my reward and put a stain on my imaginary record. So, reverting back, I made it a point to beam ahead with whomever decided to be a hero. In this case, it was Elidor again, but soon after, Rihanna showed up to the party and Brago Barg was nowhere to be found. Abandoning my post, I legged it to the other side of the mine and caught up to the orc. He seemed to be holding his ground just fine though, and shortly thereafter, the final goblin was slain.
Well, they're all taken care of now. Good work there, soldier. Get back to Grokash and get your payment.
Before leaving, I did some quick looting as there's easy gold and a plethora of containers. If the guild's only going to pay me pennies for my work, I gotta make ends meet some other way. Again, the quest isn't that tricky, and the dungeon crawl isn't challenging. It's just a matter of keeping everyone alive if you want that full reward. If you don't care though, it's not like you get expelled from the guild, so there's not much harm in letting natural selection take its course. Once done, I returned to Shadenhall and reported back to Burrs.
Haven't you taken care of that weapons shipment yet? Those weapons won't deliver themselves. You got the weapons there and cleared the mine with no casualties. Better than I expected from you. Here's your reward and a little bonus.
With that, thus ends the quest, the Desolate Mine. Ready for more work, I followed up with Burrs.
Looks like it's time for a promotion. Due to your performance, I name you Journeyman of the Fighters Guild. You're needed in Coral. Report to Velena Danton. She's got some duties for you to take care of.
It's now time to be formally introduced to the Guildmaster, Velena Danton. Although you don't interact with her a whole lot, I find her role in the story to be very impactful, and knowing how future events unfold, it just makes me feel sad for her character. But that's something we'll get into later in the story.
Greetings. I see you've been keeping yourself busy. This is good. I believe it's time for you to perform some duties for your guild. We are a brotherhood, a family. What affects one of us affects us all. Fighting, drunkenness, dereliction of duty are not tolerated. I would like you to speak with Modrin Orion. He will assign you any duties that are currently pending. Good luck to you.
Now we get introduced to Modrin, one of my favorite NPCs in the entire game.
What do you want? I suppose you've come looking for duties, huh? Duties for you. Fine. I'll speak slowly so you can keep up. I want you to contact Maglier. He's one of your Fighters Guild brothers, but he's defaulted on a contract. We can't allow that. Makes us all look bad. He didn't finish out a contract in Skingrad. Suppose I shouldn't be surprised. He's raw like you. Go and find out what's wrong with him.
Obviously, without getting too heavy into spoilers, if such a thing even exists anymore with the game, contracts coming from Modron tend to affect the overall storyline, while work that comes from Azan or Burz tend to follow their own plots. In my opinion, both are equally as interesting, as more often than not, the missions are varied and have you exploring different avenues of Cyrodiil. Arriving in Skingrad and making my way into the Westweald Inn, we get introduced to another beloved character in the questline, Maglier.
What is it, brother? They send you to find me? Defaulted? I suppose so. I'm not paid enough to do the job. I was supposed to find Brennus Astus's journal. That was my job. They said it was in Fallen Rock Cave. You ever been in there? Didn't think so. I'm not going back. Not for that kind of money. If you care that much, you go find it. The contract's yours. It's not worth it for what the guild is paying. I've got a family to think about.
I was wondering if they were going to make changes to both Modron and Maglier's voice acting, but I'm honestly glad they didn't. Craig Setchler gave such an amazing performance, as did so many of the other original voice actors, and it would have been a shame to see it get removed from the remake. Fallen Rock Cave is a brief walk northwest of the city. Upon going inside, you'll see how it got its name. The cave consists mostly of skeletons. Unfortunately for me, they don't have many natural weaknesses, so my fire spells weren't critting. However, they're fairly weak opponents to begin with, at least for the first couple of levels, so the crawl really wasn't much of an issue. There are a couple of different tunnels and chambers to explore here, but getting to the room with the journal is actually a pretty easy feat. Brennus's book is a loose collection of entries on some of the creatures found in Cyrodiil. Really, the only interesting part here, at least to me, is that farmers called Landreg billies. This was quoted by the UESP as being a reference to the development team, as during production for Oblivion, they nicknamed Landreg billies. This was in order to keep its existence under wraps. A fun, neat little fact for you there, if you didn't already know it, of course. In any case, after snagging the journal, I did a little more exploration, cleared out the rest of the dungeon, looted some containers, and then took my leave. From here, I traveled back to the Westweald Inn and informed Maglier that he was a failure.
You're still around. I've told you why I defaulted on the contract. Not too much else to be said about it. Do what you must. You found it, huh? Good work, I guess. Well, take it back to Orin then. He can pay you on the contract. Tell him what you want about me.
At this point, you have the option of covering for the Bosmer, or straight up telling him he's getting thrown under the bus.
Thanks. I'm not trying to shirk my duty, but it used to be 2 or 3 men would be on this. I like the guild, but I've got a family to consider.
Right now, my decision probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and ultimately, what you end up doing doesn't have that much of an impact on the storyline. However, the last time I went through the Fighters Guild, I told the truth about Maglier and Fallen Rock Cave. So this time, I wanted to switch things up.
Why are you talking to me? Shouldn't you be finding Maglier? You've got the journal. Good. So, what happened in Skingrad? He didn't. This doesn't sit well with me. Not well at all. Still, the job got done. Let's hope your friend Maglier has learned a lesson here.
This mission acts as a great introductory to several minor and major characters in the story. With that, thus ends the quest, Unfinished Business. Returning to Modron, I asked if there was anything else he needed from me.
Back again, huh? What is it? Back for more work, are you? Good. Some of our boys are causing trouble in Leowin. Looks bad for the guild. Some of your brothers have been getting rowdy at the local tavern. I've got no problem with cutting loose, but I don't like it when we all look bad. You're looking for Relian, Vantus Prelius, and Dubak Groshok. I haven't had any trouble with them before, so find out what's going on.
For some reason, I always forget the timeline for a lot of these quests. I assumed Drunk and Disorderly was later into the storyline, but then I remembered why it's closer to the beginning and what it ends up introducing to the player. Before traveling to Leyawiin, I made a quick pit stop at the Coral Mages Guild Hall. I wanted to stay ahead of the curve and upgrade some spells. I was now level 4, yet still using some basic destruction and conjuration magic. I ended up wasting my money on the Bound War Axe, but making a wise investment in Flashbolt. I'll explain later on those. Finally, heading down to Leyawiin, I began asking around about my guildmates.
There's some folks causing trouble, that's for sure. Head over to the Five Claws Lodge. You'll see.
Doing so, I laid eyes on the intoxicated Relian, Vantis, and Dubakro shack. Beside them was a flip table and chairs, a detail that was also in the original game, but not one I ever noticed until now.
You'll keep your nose out of this if you know what's good for you. Trouble? Trouble, you're damn right. But it's not us, friend. The real trouble's with the Blackwood Company. They're what's causing trouble. Mercenaries is what they are. And they've hung up a shingle here in Leyawiin. Vantis can tell you more.
Virtuous also added in a sway to their body movements, which totally adds to their drunken appearance. It's a small detail on the outside, but for me, goes a long way.
It's not wise to interrupt us in the middle of our discussion. I don't think so. I'll tell you what real trouble is. It's trying to pay my debtors when there's no work. It's my wife taking in wash to buy food. That's been the state of things since the Blackwood Company began moving in. I spit on them. Mercenaries sent by the Emperor to reclaim territory in Black Marsh. When they failed, they came back and set up shop. They've been undercutting us on contracts ever since, and they've no qualms about accepting jobs no guild member would be caught dead doing. A brilliant idea. Orion only sends his best these days. Tell you what, you go find us some paying work and we'll happily go about it.
Your Fighters Guild, get them out of here. Jobs around here? Don't know that I trust you enough to recommend you to anyone.
Greasing Witse-Dutse's wheels a bit, I tried again.
Jobs for the Fighters Guild. Try Margart. If she's not at home or at the Five Claws, she's probably out looking for alchemical ingredients.
It's during this quest that we get introduced to a mysterious faction called the Blackwood Company. All we know for now is that they're taking all of the contracts, the good and the ugly, and at a fraction of the price the Fighters Guild would have done them for. We'll hear more about them later though.
My name is Margart. Professionally, I'm a trade consultant. I offer advanced mercantile training, by the way. But my real passion is alchemy. I love brewing up new and interesting potions, just for fun. It's a pity my busy consulting and training schedule leaves me little time for gathering ingredients. And heavens forfend that my husband, Itar, devote a few minutes from his all-consuming hobby, stirring up trouble between Khajiits and Argonians, to help me find ingredients. I suppose I've got something I could use the guild's help with. I need ogre teeth and minotaur horn for my alchemy experiments. They're tough to get, but I prefer fresh, and I'll pay well. And I just don't trust those Blackwood Company folks to find them. Well, I'm not sure about you either. Tell you what, if you bring me back 5 portions of ectoplasm, I'll give my business to the guild. That's my offer.
At low levels, 5 samples of ectoplasm sound kind of like a nightmare. If you don't have much in the way of magical attacks, don't know which dungeon to go to, and don't want to spend your own money at ingredient shops, I've got just the place for you to visit. For starters, probably the most convenient spot is Leyawiin's own Chapel Undercroft. A spectral undead spawn in there as early as level 1. However, I personally like to go to the Anvil docks and quickly run through the quest, the Ghost Ship of Anvil. This one can be given to the player at any time. It's brief, there are exactly 5 spectral sailors, meaning 5 samples of ectoplasm, there's plenty of minor treasures and chests to loot, and if you're struggling with the fight, you can bring the wraiths outside and simply have the town of Anvil deal with it. In the end too, you get the leveled, enchanted weapon, Red Wave. If your character is proficient with blades, it's perfect. If not, you can sell it for some coin. This is also where I tested out my Bound War Axe spell. Of course, it was much worse than the dagger, given my blunt skill. I honestly have no clue what I was thinking. I guess I wanted some weapon diversity, but this was just setting me back even more. Now, a common issue I've been encountering with the remake is that the Wraiths have a hard time exiting the ship. I think it's because they get hard stopped in the doorways due to their bulky frames. If this happens, I suggest exiting the ship, resetting with potions, and then rushing back in for the fight. At the very least, it won't take you that long to get back to the Wraiths, and you can resume your work. Once I acquired all 5 samples of ectoplasm, I returned to Leowyn and presented them to Margart.
Have you found me ectoplasm? Well, you've got the ectoplasm. Seems you Fighters Guild types can do a job when you put your mind to it. Tell your men I'll pay them for Minotaur horns and ogre teeth. The Fighters Guild will be my sole supplier. I look forward to doing more business.
With the Nord willing to work with the Fighters Guild, I rushed back to the Five Claws Lodge and told the men the good news.
I've told you what we need. Until we've work, we'll stay here. Find ingredients from our guard, huh? Works for me. I'll let the other men know. Appreciate your help, friend. And Orion should be happy.
I could be wrong, but if I recall correctly, in the original game, Vantis, Relian, and Shaq run off as soon as they hear the word. In the remake, they feel the need to finish their drink, which I found kind of funny. In any case, now that my guildmates are going to have food on their table again, I returned to Orion and Coral and reported my success.
I'm looking for results from you. What have you found out? The Blackwood Company has taken that much of a foothold in Leowyn. Those sons of... Never mind. You've done your job. Here's your payment for it.
I've always enjoyed this mission because it's where the player first hears about the Blackwood Company, a faction that takes the guild by storm and creeps into the main story. With that, thus ends the quest, Drunk and Disorderly. Before leaving, I checked to see if Orion had any more work for me.
You've done well. Because of your efforts, you have achieved the rank of Swordsman of the Fighters Guild. I don't have anything for you right now. Speak with Azan or Grokash. Get some more seasoning, and maybe I'll have something. Or perhaps you're ready for advancement.
Being cast back into the Fighters Guild rat race, I decided to go see what Azan had in store for me first.
Greetings. Looking for some more work, are you? Good to see you're working hard. I've got some more thieves for you to deal with in Anvil. There have been a number of thefts in the area, and witnesses believe the thieves are holed up nearby. Check around and see what you can learn. I'm not sure the numbers you'll be dealing with, so I'm sending you with another new recruit, Maglier. I believe you two have already met.
Look who returned to the scene. My good old wood elf friend.
Oh, it's you. Looks like we're working together. Sounds like we need to ask around Anvil for any clues. Figures we'd get a mission without any real direction. I'll follow you.
This is one of the few missions where the game gifts you a temporary follower. But since he's essential to the storyline, Maglier can get tossed around like a hot potato and it wouldn't really matter. Meaning that there's no way to fail this quest.
I don't think I know you well enough to tell you that.
Greasing the guard's wheels a bit, I tried again.
Can't say I know anything myself, but I heard that Newheim the Portly had some things stolen, and he's been asking around about it. Ask him.
Approaching Newheim's home, I waited until he was ready to start his day, and then asked him about the thieves.
Hail, what can Newheim the Portly do for you? Aye, I know about those scum. Rotten bastards robbed me blind, they did. Stole a family heirloom. Bunch of Bosmer, if you can believe it. No offense to your friend, of course. Last I heard, they were holed up in Hirota Cave, not too far from here. Took my flagon, they did. Passed down to me from my father Rolf, and from his father Torvald. It's a wondrous cup. Keeps ale cold and sweet. Been drinking from a lousy wooden tankard since. It's just not the same. If you can find it, you'd have the gratitude of Newheim the Portly.
From Anvil's gates, Hirota Cave is approximately 160 steps north-northwest. I personally enjoy the addition of the distance tracker to the compass. I haven't seen much discourse online surrounding it, which is good to see. I like not having to frequently open the map in order to check how far along I am into the trek. This allows me to enjoy the journey more and take in all of those sweet Unreal Engine 5 views. As mentioned by Newheim, Prota Cave is jam-packed with a bunch of Bosmer. There are 8 named thieves in total, and they all vary in class: sharpshooters, battle mages, nightblades, and hunters. This was the first quest that I actually had some difficulty with. Since a lot of these wood elves specialize in running away, they tend to leash their nearby allies and have them join in on the fight. This can add up to 3 or 4 enemies at once, and even though Maglier tries his best, the 2 of us alone are no match. It was also during this portion where I really started to see my spells weaken. My bound dagger wasn't doing nearly as much damage as it used to, and even Flashbolt was struggling to kill my opponents. After receiving my first death, I knew I had to go about this dungeon crawl more carefully. Gone were the days of bull rushing my opponents and tanking hits. The next attempt went a lot smoother though. Maglier and I were slow, meticulous, and methodical. I tried my best to get behind the enemy, closing off their escape, while my companion took them head on. Eventually though, it got to the point where Maglier was nothing more than a practice dummy. He'd get knocked unconscious, rise back up, and then fall back down. That pretty much took him out of the race, but at that point, there were only a couple thieves left. Once all of the Bosmer were taken care of, I went to go look for Newheim's flagon. This portion is actually its own little side quest within the Den of Thieves mission. It's something that you can easily miss if you forget about it, or if you didn't know that it was its own thing. Once the wood elves were defeated and the flagon was secured, I did a little more looting, and then returned to Newheim in Anvil.
Ah, you've got it. Thank the gods. Finally, my mead will stay cold and won't taste like goblin piss. Take these, and my thanks.
As a reward for this potion, I received 3 bottles of Newheim's special brew. These fortify strength and personality for 10 points for 60 seconds, as well as restore 10 points of fatigue. With that part wrapped up, I then went and reported back to Azan.
So have you taken care of those thieves yet? Cleared them out, did you? Good work, you two. I see big things for you with the guild. Here's your payment.
Other than getting to work with my good friend Maglier, this quest showed me that I need to step up my game if I'm going to progress through the storyline. With that, thus ends the quest, Den of Thieves. Checking in with Azan, he didn't have anything else for me to do right now. So, I was sent off to Cheydinhal and reported to Burzgrokash. Like mentioned before, I almost always have a difficult time finding the guy due to his busy schedule. However, this one was on me as the orc was simply lounging around in the Fighters Guild basement.
I've got another contract for you, meat. I assume you won't embarrass yourself. It's from Bienna Amelion at the Water's Edge settlement. She needs something retrieved from her ancestral tomb. Try not to muck it up.
This is the quest where the player is introduced to the Water's Edge settlement. It has a small part to play in the overall story, but those who know the plot also know just how impactful it's going to be. On the way to the village, I ended up running into Vantis and the gang hunting around for samples. They weren't slaying ogres or minotaurs, but they were keeping themselves busy. Finally, I arrived at the settlement and sought out Bien.
Hello, you must be from the Fighters Guild. I'm glad you're here. I need your help to repay a debt. I'm afraid so. My father had a bit of an issue with gambling. I'm afraid he built up a rather large debt. Now that he's gone, the debt is mine. Gone. Dragged from our house in the night. To pay the debt, I'd like to sell the sword and armor of my grandfather, or I might be next. A great deal. Over 1,000 septims. My father was quite a gambler. Quite a bad gambler. They were buried with my grandfather in the family tomb. The sword and cuirass were enchanted and should cover my debt. Please, get them for me. Not far, in my family's ancestral tomb. Here, I can mark it on your map. Please, return them to me so I can pay off my father's debts.
You might have noticed that there was an option to pay off the Amelion debt right then and there. That obviously comes from your own pocket and runs you around 1,000 gold. The reason why this is an option is because the game is offering you a chance to keep the unique cuirass and sword. It also pretty much skips the meat of this quest entirely. After paying Bien, you can simply return to Burz and cash in on your efforts. You don't actually need to go and collect the items. However, I'd recommend at least venturing into the Amelion tomb and seeing the loot for yourself before you make a judgment call. You'll be presented with the choice again once you've retrieved her grandfather's gear and have returned to Bien. The dungeon pretty much consists of all undead enemies. In my case, I battled against mostly zombies and a handful of skeletons. This made my trek really simple as I was able to two-shot most of the monsters. The final stretch of the tomb is guarded by a leveled spirit. In my case, it was nothing more than a lowly ghost, and a few flash bolts took it out no problem. Placed on one of the stone coffins were the cuirass and longsword of Brusef Amelion. The rest of Brusef's gear is also in the tomb, but to be honest, I completely missed them and frankly forgot about their existence. All Bien needs for this quest are the cuirass and sword, and those are the only enchanted pieces. The cuirass offers a 6% frost shield on self, while the sword deals 5 points of frost damage. Another round of honesty, I didn't know that the armor was light. So, you're gonna see me hand over the gear to her, but just know that after this quest, I'm gonna revert back, grab the rest of the set, pay her out, and keep everything for myself. At this point, it's an upgrade for my character, the armor looks nice, and I can't stand looking at the diaper part of the chain armor.
Hello again. Have you had any luck finding the sword and armor? You found them! Fantastic! I can't tell you what this means to me. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hopefully, I'll be able to sell these for enough to pay my debt. You're a lifesaver.
With the debt taken care of, I then reported my success back to Burz.
You need to finish out the contract with Bienna Amelion in Water's Edge. What's the status? Got a sword and armor for her, huh? Not bad work, meat. Here's your payment for the contract.
Because I'm level 5, I finally received a pay raise for my efforts. Now I'm able to rake in a whopping 200 gold per contract. At this point in the story, I've gotten acquainted with the guild and my superiors. I've learned that not everything is all sunshine and rainbows though, as work is limited due to the Blackwood Company. I'm not quite sure who they are yet though, and exactly what their goal is. I've met Maglier, who's currently unhappy with the way things are being run. What comes next is a big turning point in my Fighters Guild career, as well as in the storyline. Through other adventures, I got some nifty little gear upgrades. For starters, I went back to the Amelion tomb and collected the rest of Brusef's gear. I had that part recorded and then accidentally deleted it, so that's pretty unfortunate. Nevertheless, I got everything except for the shield and helmet, and I stashed the sword away. The armor looks phenomenal, but it's a little heavier than most other light armor sets, so I'm not 100% sold on it. I also went out and retrieved the dagger, Witsplinter. Although, in its current state, it's not much more than a slick-looking steel knife. In any case, I was ready to continue my journey through the questline.
What can I do for you? You're due for advancement. I hereby name you Protector of the Fighters Guild. I've been told to send you to Coral for some duties. Speak with Orion.
A promotion and a contract from Orion himself? What more could a guy ask for? Before heading out, I did a quick level up and splashed some points into intelligence, willpower, and agility. To be honest, this build was slowly turning into one that I didn't really want. The original vision was a stealth mage who crits with destruction and uses conjuration for weapons, i.e. a blade and bow. However, I haven't been notified of any attack bonuses while firing off a spell undetected, and the bound weapons I'm capable of conjuring right now haven't been that helpful. Although, it's not too late to make some changes, which is something that's done later on. In any case, arriving at the guild hall, I sought out Modron.
I've got another job for you, slightly off the record. You'll be going on a mission with Varanus Daunton. Yes, the Guildmaster's son. You're to accompany him and make sure he succeeds. He needs some time in the field to get his confidence up, or he'll never become a good warrior. Valena coddles the boy too much. Doesn't want him in the line of fire. Suppose it's no surprise, after Vitellis. Valena Danton's eldest son. Good man. We lost him on a botched mission recently. You've probably seen the other wounded around. If you're smart, you'll steer clear of the subject around the Guildmaster. Perhaps you and I will have time to discuss it more later. His mother's been holding him back, protecting him. You'll go to Nanwell Cavern with him. Galtus Previa was lost there, and you're to find him. And not a word of this to the Guildmaster. Go find him. He'll be in the Danton house, most likely. And bring him back in one piece.
Weirdly enough, Orain calls the guy Varanus, while most others say Varanus. I've personally always said Varanus, so that's what I'm gonna go with.
Greetings, guildmate. What can I do for you? A mission? Well, of course. I'm sure we can do this. You say this came from Orain himself? Well, perhaps I should speak with Mother first. Oh, I'm prepared. Of course. I'm sure there's no need to speak to Mother at all. Let's go. Yes, my older brother. He was lost on a mission. Vitellis died valiantly, as we all knew he would. He was the best of us. I'm sure our mother is very proud of him.
I was really interested to hear that the devs switched out voice actors for Varanus. I'm not entirely sure why they did that. Maybe just to have a wider array of voices in the game, to convey some different emotions, who knows. It was a change that they really didn't have to make at all, so I'm just curious on why they decided to do it. In any case, Nanwell Cavern is a brief walk north of Coral. Going on inside, I encountered the same quirks that I used to in original Oblivion, so it was good to see that some things never change. Without warning, Varanus would charge ahead through the dungeon, running across tunnels and chambers, aggroing onto enemies I had no clue were even there. He definitely wasn't waiting for me as backup, and while it was entertaining to watch, he'd get knocked out and I'd be left to deal with 3+ enemies at once. Thankfully, I had my fire spells for the trolls, or else I would have been in deep trouble. If anything though, I never really thought how much that buffs up the immersion. Of course, a greeny newbie like Varanus would be eager to rush into battle, regardless of the consequences. He wants to prove himself to the guild as well as to his mother. So yeah, why wouldn't he recklessly charge in and attempt to show off his skills? There was another issue I'd run into with Varanus, and thankfully there weren't any consequences. He'd run right in front of my target and take the full brunt of my cast. This knocked him out more times than I could count, but luckily all it really did was put more of the opponent's heat onto me. Progressing through the dungeon, we started with trolls and then moved on to ogres. Really just the worst things you'd want to see if there was any hopes of rescuing Galtus Previa alive. Like mentioned before, Witsplinter was a neat addition to the arsenal, and if it was fully repaired and recharged, maybe it could have done more to my enemies. But in its current state with my skills, I would have been better off whipping pennies at the beasts. Eventually, Varanus and I entered the room that contained the corpse of Galtus. Something the remake did that in my opinion is an interesting choice was allowing regular NPCs to have red eyes, which is exactly what we see with Mr. Previa. In the original game, that's how you knew someone was a vampire, a character you'd keep your eyes on all the time. Now, any Joe Schmo can have undead eyes, and you'd be none the wiser. Back to the story, beside Previa's corpse is a broken shield. The shape is quite odd, and getting a look at the front of it, you may or may not recognize the emblem. Taking the piece, it's now time to leave Nanwell Cavern and report back to Orain. Venturing through the rest of the dungeon will bring you some minor loot and tougher opponents. Varanus and I even ended up facing off against a Minotaur together, which was probably some good experience for him.
You're back. What have you found out about Galtus Previa's disappearance? Dead? Damn, what got him? Let me see that. Interesting. The symbols on it are familiar to me. I'll be looking into this. Nothing we need to talk about now. I'll pay Varanus for his contract. This is for you. Who knows? I might be able to make soldiers out of you both.
I might have ever only gotten the dialogue prompt for the shield once or twice before, as I always forget to pick it up. So it was neat to hear it after so long and to see that Modron might have a clue or two as to what actually happened in the cavern. As a reward, he gifted me the short sword of Jolts. It's a regular iron short sword, but deals 5 points of shock damage per strike. Definitely something that'll come in handy. With that, thus ends the quest, The Master's Son. Checking in with Orain, I wanted to see if there was more work to be done.
You again? Fine. I imagine you're looking for work from me. I'm going to need you to find Maglir again, the little fetcher. That's right. The little vermin has defaulted on another contract. I need you to go babysit him again. Wish I knew what happened. He had a contract for a local mage in Bravil. Didn't seem like a particularly difficult assignment. He hasn't reported to the client at all. Get yourself down to Bravil and find Maglir. Make sure that contract of his gets done, and send him to me.
It's time to go and look for my good old Bosmer friend again. Fast traveling over to Bravil, I began asking around.
Maglir? I think I've seen him. Trying the Lonely Suitor Lodge.
Similar to last time, he spends all his waking moments loitering around one of the inns, complaining about the job, as opposed to just going and trying it out. Deciding to take a page out of Maglir's book, I committed time theft myself and stopped by at a Warlock's Luck. Here, I purchased a more powerful destruction spell, Flame Touch. This one deals 25 points of fire damage, which is better than Flashbolt's 20, it's just not ranged. There's certainly room on the hotkey wheel for both though. Strolling on into the Lonely Suitor Lodge, the situation with Maglir was much worse than I could have thought. He had a whole new set of gear, and what's more, I recognized the shield and emblem on his cuirass, the very same one from Non-Will Cavern.
You again? I imagine I know why you're here, Guildrat. Defaulted? That all you talk about? I'm Blackwood Company now. Plenty of work, the pay is good, and I don't have Orain on my back all the time. Look, I know that you covered for me before, so I'll give you this one. Talk to Ariari at the Mages Guild for the job. After this, we're done.
There's a lot to unpack from that conversation. Maglir defected to the Blackwood Company, the very same faction who's been undercutting the guild, and whose shield was found beside Galtus' previous dead body. Definitely some strange times. Furthermore, during that conversation, Maglir gave me the details of his abandoned contract. If I hadn't covered for him during the Fallen Rock mission, I would have needed to learn about the Ariari contract through other means.
It's about time someone from the Fighters Guild showed up. I've got work for you to do. I need imp gall for my research. I need imp gall for my studies. 10 portions of it, in fact. Since I hired the Fighters Guild, I expect you to get it done. And carefully, please. You might check Robbers Glen Cave for the imp gall. That place has been known to contain the imps. I just don't trust them. I know they're efficient, a bit too efficient for my liking. Some endeavors demand time and care.
Leaving Bravil, I was surprised to see the city's Oblivion Gate was already opened. Usually you only see gates this close to a town after a certain point in the main questline. I haven't touched that storyline at all, so why the portal opened there is beyond me. This Fighters Guild contract might be one of the easiest ones that the player gets to do. Really, the trickiest part probably would have been finding out that Ariari was the client. Robbers Glen Cave is pretty close to Bravil, and the only creatures inside of there are imps. One-on-one, imps are incredibly easy opponents. Bunched up though, for lower level players, they can prove to be more than a nuisance. They're good at overwhelming the player, especially when your race has weaknesses to magic, like my Altmer. What's nice though is that the imp stats cap off once the player hits level 4. They have a maximum health bar of 45 points, and their melee attacks only go as high as 6 points of damage. Whilst collecting the gall, I tried to take my time and level up my blade skill. It was falling behind a bit compared to my destruction, and I wanted them to be neck and neck for the most part. Even for puny little imps, Wood Splitter just wasn't cutting it. By now, it was pretty much confirmed that the Sword of Jolts was going to be my main melee weapon, which is nothing to brag about. In any case, Robber's Glen Cave is an easy crawl, there are decent chests to loot, and you'll be out of there in no time.
Oh, good. Well, have you found that imp gall for me yet? I've got some research I need to get to. Ah, you've got it. Looks fresh, too. I realize you'll be paid by your superior, but take this as well. It might come in handy in your work.
As a reward, Aryari gifts me the Ring of Aegis, which shields my character for 15%. On my ultimate playthrough in original Oblivion, pretty sure this is the ring I'm either still using or frequently switch to in times of need. So that being said, I'm pretty thrilled to have it in my arsenal. With Maglir's current whereabouts and status known, and the contract complete, it's time to report back to Modron.
What is it? Shouldn't you be taking care of Maglir's contract? I can't believe we lost another to that bunch. Well done taking care of the contract, though. We can't afford to lose any of them these days. Here's your payment for completion of the contract. I think it's time for us to discuss the Blackwood Company a bit. They weren't always a threat. Small-scale mercenary band, until Riza Kar took over. Then came the fat Imperial contracts. After a mission in Blackmarsh, they set up shop in Leowin, more ruthless than ever. It needs investigating. First, though, you need advancement.
It's time to finally learn a bit more about this mysterious faction and what they actually stand for. With that, thus ends the quest, more unfinished business. Resuming the chat with Orain, there were still some important matters to discuss.
Your service to the guild has not gone unnoticed. Henceforth, you will carry the rank of Defender. Bear the title proudly. I've got something for you, but we're not going to talk about it here. I want you to meet me at my house after sundown. We'll talk more then.
A secretive off-the-record mission. Meeting at Modron's house after dark can only mean one thing. Well, maybe two, but it's probably to discuss something that Velena Danton shouldn't hear.
Good, you're here. We've got duties to attend to. I've been looking into them, heard some disturbing things. We know they're a danger to us, and we know they're good at what they do. Good question. I've heard stories, but nothing I can prove is true. Maybe they've got a mage working with them. Maybe they're just well trained. All I know for sure is that they'll accept any contract, and they'll do anything to complete it. And they don't care who gets in the way. Velena's gotten tentative since the Blackheart mission. She's worried about getting us killed. But we're just getting killed a little bit at a time. That mission was the start of it. That was when Vitelis was killed. We were contracted by a wizard, Argoth, to recover an artifact from Blackheart. I went in there with 20 men. I left with 5. Vitelis wasn't one of them. He died covering our retreat. I snooped around. Apparently, they completed that contract for us. I went in there with 20 good men. I can't believe that bunch finished the job. There's more. Argoth, he's dead. The artifact gone. Sounds like a setup. Maybe they made a deal with Blackheart. I don't know. But I'll find out. Now we find out what really happened. And we let it be known. I want to show the people who the Blackwood Company really are. I can't order you to do this with me. It's dangerous, and Velena isn't going to know about it. It's your choice. We leave as soon as you're ready. I want to investigate Blackheart's stronghold in Arpenia. Meet me at the Leowin Guild Hall. We'll go from there.
Now, a little more light has been shed on the Blackwood Company. We got to hear about Vitelis Danton, his downfall, and some conspiracies regarding the competitor and Azani Blackheart. Before meeting with Modron, I paid a quick visit to the Imperial Market District. I wanted to have a brief look around, buy some supplies, repair my gear, and possibly acquire some upgrades, but I didn't have much luck on that last one. I was basically brainstorming how I could steer this build back on track or possibly pivot to something else entirely. I put out a video for the remaster on how I start my Oblivion playthroughs, and honestly, this character was getting a little too close to that childhood build I so desperately wanted to avoid. Back to the story, I arrived at the Leyawiin Fighters Guild Hall and met with Orain.
We need to check out Arpinia. Come on, I'll follow you.
I've made an entire video about it, so I won't harp on it too much, but it really is a shame we don't get to experience the life and culture at the other guild halls. We only get to see the politics of the Coral, Anvil, and Shadenhall halls, and you briefly step into the Leyawiin Hall, but that's about it. You never need to visit the other HQs in Bruma, Skingrad, or Breville for any reason. I know there's 1001 other stories to tell in the game, and we don't need much more from this faction, but if Virtuous ends up putting out some sort of DLC for the remake, I wouldn't mind if some of the lesser halls were involved in some way. From Leyawiin, the alien ruin of Arpinia is approximately 650 some odd steps away. If you're like me and don't have much discovered around it, you'll pass by some interesting locations, like Nocturnal Shrine and perhaps the odd Oblivion Gate here and there. Arriving and going on inside, my companion and I only faced off against nuisance creatures, and we really only explored 4 or so rooms before he turned to me for some dialogue.
Nothing. I knew it. Azani Blackheart isn't here, alive or dead. The bastards. There was no battle. Azani must have made a deal with the Blackwood Company. My guess is that they paid him off. They get the weapon for Argoth, collect the payment, and tell Azani where the mage is. Easy for Blackheart to retrieve the weapon and collect on it. We find Blackheart and get that weapon. We'll finish this contract and let all of Cyrodiil know what happened here. Blackheart has a fascination with these alien ruins. There's one northeast of here, Atatar. My bet is that he moved his base there. I'll lead.
I've made a big stink about this in my original playthrough, and I'm super glad that they changed it in the remake. Before, the game had you explore the entire dungeon of Arpinia. Every little section shrouded in fog of war had to be looked over, each nook and cranny and separate chamber. Even then, I vaguely remember needing to be the one who initiated the conversation with Modron in order to actually leave the ruin. So, for my first time in ages playing through the quest, I was stuck in Arpinia for a long time. Thankfully, in the remake, all we did was poke our heads in and then leave. They still kept in Orain's extremely slow walk to Atatar though. If anything, I might have preferred that they fixed that over the Arpinia crawl, but I can't over-complain about the game. After a long march over, we finally arrived in Atatar and made our way inside. There were clear signs of a struggle, dead nuisance creatures in the entranceway, which indicated that bigger game was around. Past the first trap, we ran into what I'd consider a good sign. Bandits. Where there's some, there's usually a leader. They shouldn't be much of an issue for any character, not to mention Orain is a powerhouse. He's able to steamroll through the enemies and take on all of the aggro. You honestly don't even need to lift a finger for most of this dungeon if you didn't want to. Using my short sword of jolts, there was certainly a night and day difference between its abilities and Witsplinter's. Enemies were falling no problem, and in just a few swings too. However, that's probably because of the enchantment as well as Modron's health. The only point in the dungeon where I was almost worried was just before finding Azani Blackheart. I dropped down to a platform containing a group of bandits, and 2 out of the 3 were hedge wizards. Modron decided it best to stay where he was, and as he puts it, let me get some seasoning. The wizards were beating me bad. They might have had some sort of magic resistance as my shock damage was being negated, and things got hairy pretty fast. Luckily, I was able to control the situation, move around the open space, and battled each bandit one-on-one. Finally, the threats were gone, and I moved on into Atatar Loria. Upon going in, I ruined any chance at getting the jump on Azani Blackheart. He was waiting for us by the center and aggroed on as soon as he saw our faces. Modron went charging in but got beat down bad by Sinweaver, Blackheart's enchanted elven claymore. One thing I noticed for this fight is that my time was a lot easier with this playthrough versus the one in original Oblivion. Maybe because of the different combat mechanics, maybe my overall level, perhaps it was because of the different build I was sporting. But he wasn't sending Orain flying across the room like he used to, nor was he breaking my spirit like the old days. In any case, once Blackheart was dead, I celebrated with Modron.
Azani Blackheart is dead. and our brothers avenged. Dead, finally. Good work. Did you retrieve his ring? I want that as proof that the Blackwood Company didn't defeat him.
Azani's gear is really good for my character's current level. The Elven armor set is pretty standard for level 6, and even though it's a claymore, Sinweaver is a lot of fun to use.
His ring. Have you pried it from the coward's corpse? You've got it. Good. I'll use it to prove it was we, not the Blackwood Company, who killed him. Good work on this. Now get out of here. I'm going to head back to Coral. When there's more to do, I'll let you know. Your accomplishments are impressive. Because of this, I bestow upon you the rank of Warder of the Fighters Guild.
Finally, the guild got the win that it deserves, and an age-old nemesis has been taken care of. Modron didn't need 20 good men either. He just needed the player. With that, thus ends the quest, Azani Blackheart. Before leaving Adatar, I looked over my gear to see if it made sense doing any swaps, and in my eyes, it did. Bruce of Amelion's gear was just too heavy for my character and left very little room for carrying around loot. The Elven armor was significantly lighter, and if anything, provided the same amount of protection. Due to weight capacity, I wasn't able to bring Sinweaver out of the Alien Ruin, but it's not a weapon I wanted this character to use anyways. After stashing Brusif's gear with the rest of my overflow equipment, I quickly sought out an NPC who could recharge my items. This whole time, I thought that the devs lowered the prices for repairs and recharges in the remake, because I've been paying pennies for them on most of my gear. However, the humbling finally came when I saw Wit Splinter would run me around 2,000 gold to refuel. I should definitely be investing in Soul Trap at this point. Once ready, I traveled over to Azan and Anvil and asked if there was any more work.
Well met. Good to see you're looking for more work. There's certainly more to be done. I need you to help Alante of Alanor. Alante is a scholar interested in researching Daedra worship. Meet her in Brittle Rock Cave, help her find the shrine, and keep her safe.
Ascending to level 7, I was starting to think about how the game was going to change from here. Harder enemies and deadlier attacks, but better loot and rewards. Major and minor skills were also weighing on my mind, thinking about certain ways to level them up without overshooting my overall level. Brittle Rock Cave is northeast of Anvil, closer to the city of Kvatch. I was lucky that I discovered the nearby Fort Wariel, as that just made the journey a 150-step march.
Ah, you must be from the Fighters Guild. Excellent. I'm looking forward to our investigation. Fascinating subject, these Daedra. Yes, let's investigate. And keep on your toes.
During my challenge playthrough for this quest, I found escorting Alante to actually be pretty tricky. She fights with conjuration magic, wields a dagger, and doesn't have much in the way of defense. Given the tight corridors and chambers of the cave, the Altmer almost always enters combat. She's also non-essential, so if she dies, that ends the quest. However, something I learned from my travels is that running away from her in the dungeon causes her to stop moving. So, I took the time to run ahead and clear out the rooms we were passing through. Again, I'm more than certain it's a level thing, but I've never actually faced off against Dremora in here. It's always been stunted scamps and maybe Clanfear runs. It's interesting to see churls guarding the shrine. If anything, they don't rely as heavily on fire magic, so it makes it a bit easier for my high elf to roll through. On the subject of Alante, I've always assumed that she had nefarious intentions with seeking out the shrine. What could she possibly want to study in here that she couldn't at the other ones that were above ground? This quest always felt like it intentionally left something out, like it wanted you to ask questions or to read in between the lines. However, after playing Morrowind, I think I understand what's going on here. Alante is actually an NPC who's also featured in the Elder Scrolls 3. She's in the exact same line of work, and I'm guessing this whole contract was added in for fanfare. Fans of the previous installment would recognize her and have that, type of moment. And you know what? I'm here for it. I think it's really neat.
Excellent. A fine example of a Daedric shrine. Sorry for the trouble getting here. Let's keep moving. I think I'll study this shrine a bit longer. You can make your way out here. I thank you again for your help. Please take this as a token of my thanks.
As a little bonus, Elante gifts the player 12/920 Morningstar Volume 1. This is a skill book that raises the player's blade by 1. Definitely something that my character could benefit from. There is more to the dungeon, specifically the lower passages, but other than more loot and Daedra, there isn't anything super special. Leaving the caves, I fast traveled back to Anvil and reported to Azan.
You finished? Excellent. Good work, guildmate. Here's your payment for the contract.
With that, I'm 200 gold richer, a little more knowledgeable, and thus ends the quest, The Wandering Scholar. After getting sent away by Azan, I fast traveled over to Cheydinhal and sought out Burrs for my next contract. As per usual, the man was a little difficult to track down, but not long into my search, he graced me with his presence.
What can I do for you, meat? Need something to do? I've got something for you. Could be tough. There are some escaped fugitives for you to find, meat. Some real hard cases got out of the Breville prison. Been terrorizing the locals ever since. The watch is useless, so we step in. Get to it. Apparently, there are 3 or 4 of them. Real nasty from what I hear. You take care of them. Maybe you'll get lucky and they'll surrender.
Funny enough, I always get this quest and Den of Thieves confused. I guess because it has the player tracking down lawbreakers inside of caves, but I'm not really sure. Traveling to Breville, I began asking around for info.
What? I'm not talking about them. Not to you. I barely know you.
It was always a little strange to me that the guards wouldn't want somebody else tracking down the fugitives. I get it's probably for public safety and liability reasons, but my characters from the Fighters Guild, the guards aren't doing anything about it, and it'll help settle the city, so it's a win-win.
Sure, I know about them. Look, you didn't hear it from me, but rumor is they're hiding out in Blood Mine Cave. 4 of them. Bad news.
Blood Mine Cave is a pretty short walk west of the city. Entering inside, you'll note that the dungeon is split into 2 zones. The first only contains 2 of the fugitives, Ashanta and Hlofgar. I've never found this quest to be particularly that difficult. That's likely because all of the enemies are spaced out from one another, and 3 of the 4 are no stronger than the average bandit ringleader. Ashanta, Hlofgar, and Dritle are all 1 level ahead of the player. The Nord is a barbarian and fights using a leveled mace. The Redguard is a blade master and wields a longsword. On the other side of the cavern is the Argonian Dritle. He battles with a leveled bow. Then finally, you have Enrian, arguably the leader of the gang, as he's always placed 3 levels above the player. He's a mage and also wields a dagger. At least one of the baddies is going to be a problem for someone's character. For me, I expected to have the most trouble fighting Enrian, as we both have weaknesses to each other's spells. But in reality, he ended up being the easiest, falling in just a few blasts with my destruction spell. Other than the quest-related NPCs, the only other thing in here was a Timberwolf, but certainly not something to be feared. Once the dungeon was cleared out and looted, I returned to Burrs and reported my success.
You've got a contract to take care of. Why are you talking to me? Took care of all of them, did you? And you're still alive. Fantastic. You're full of surprises. Here's your payment. Good work.
Another completion in the books for the Fighters Guild. With that, thus ends the quest, The Fugitives. Waking up the grumpy old orc once more, I checked in to see what's next.
You've been doing a good job, and under a lot of scrutiny. I've been authorized to promote you to the rank of Guardian. Good work. I understand Urien is looking for you again. Get to Coral and speak with the man.
Clearly, someone needs their beauty sleep still. Leaving the guild hall, I fast traveled to Coral and sought out Modron. On a side note, something I haven't been showing but has happened every single time I've landed in Coral, Dharma tracks me down like we're part of the movie It Follows. She's relentless and won't stop trying to talk to me, but I'm definitely not ready to initiate a Shadow over Hackdirt yet.
I've got another job for you. It's a sensitive one. I need you to find Varanus Daunton. I sent him on a mission to Forsaken Mine. He and some others were supposed to clear the place of trolls. Haven't heard back from them in days. I want you to go check it out. I don't need to tell you how sensitive a matter this is. Get moving and report back to me as soon as possible. We'd been contracted to clear the place of trolls. It was a tough job, but I felt the men I sent were up to it. I want to know what happened.
Without trying to give away too much, this quest, to me, always felt like the turning point in the storyline. The rising action that kicks off the end phase of the Fighters Guild, and it really sheds light on the background as to what's been going on here. Forsaken Mine literally borders the southern wall of Leyawiin. It takes no time at all to get there, and the exterior was being guarded by a lone imp. Now, I've been talking about it for a little bit, but it was during this quest where I started to implement some changes. I found a dwarven bow in Bloodmane Cave and decided to start buffing up my marksman skill. If I wanted to rely on conjuring a bound bow one day, I thought it best to work on my archery now, so that way it'll actually deal some damage to my enemies come time. Heading on inside of the mine, it's immediately clear that the guild got slaughtered. Blood and corpses littered the rocky ground, and nuisance creatures were feasting on the rotten remains. There were probably close to 10 dead guildmates in the entrance area. However, there weren't any signs of trolls. Continuing along the dungeon, everything comes to light when you stumble across the body of a Blackwood Company mercenary. They're wearing the same armor that Magler donned and are holding the same shield that was found by Galta's previous body. The full story is still unclear, but it looks like there was a battle between trolls, guild members, and the Blackwood Company. However, the guild seems to have taken the biggest loss. Continuing down the dungeon, in the next tunnel over, you'll start to come across some savage trolls. Given how many trolls are actually in Forsaken Mine, something tells me the guild didn't get that far into their job before the massacre happened. Something I haven't really discussed much was the updated appearance of the trolls. I think the new design for the beasts is amazing. It adds a lot more ferocity to them and makes the creatures look way more intimidating than they used to. Luckily for me, and unfortunately for the trolls, Flame Touch is practically able to one-shot them. In between farming my marksman skill, when the enemies would get too close, I'd close out the fight with some destruction magic, and it made for a pretty easy time in here. Fortunately, archery is a minor skill for me and doesn't really affect my overall level that much, but I do have to be careful and watch my experience bar. After venturing through a lot of the mine, I walked into a room that held the corpse of Uranus Daunton. At some point during the contract, he had perished next to someone named Edward Hodge. On Varanus' body, there was a bloody journal. Giving it a read, it reveals so much about the guild's current state, Velena Daunton's mindset, and what exactly happened here. The beginning blurb says that many of the pages are illegible due to blood and general damage. The first entry details how hard Velena was hit by the death of her son, Vitalis. She's constantly grieving at his grave, and Varanus comments how it's better to die for the honor of the guild than to live a mundane life. The next entry talks about how Varanus has been stuck on barracks duty. Both him and his friend, Edward, believe it's to keep him out of harm's way. Daunton then discusses how good of a companion Edward has been towards him, keeping him company at the barracks and purposely foregoing contracts to stay with him. As time goes on, Varanus begins to doubt his abilities. He thinks that maybe Velena has a point in not sending him out. He might not be a right fit for the guild. The following entry has Daunton expressing joy and excitement. It's the day that him and I went to Nonwell Cavern, his first real contract in months. He's able to recognize that Orain still has faith in him, and even comments on how it's his job to try and keep me alive. After our outing, more time passes and he's still stuck on barracks duty. He talks about how difficult it is to come by jobs now, as the Blackwood Company is dominating the market. Varanus also alludes to being in a relationship with Edward Hodge. This sheds some light on why Hodge chose the mundane work life. It was in order to support the young Daunton and nourish their feelings for one another. The next few entries are brief. Varanus talks about being sent to Forsaken Mine with Edward, a truly exciting day. Then, the writing turns sour. Everyone who was sent on the contract died, including Hodge. Daunton details how the trolls were manageable, but all of a sudden, in comes the Blackwood Company. They slashed away at both the beasts and the guild, cutting like rabid animals. They fled as soon as they came, and Varanus was left to die. The last thing he heard before perishing were the trolls coming for him. His last words were, "I'm sorry, mother." If you didn't piece it together before, the entire story is out there now. The Blackwood Company aren't just mere contract workers, they're something else. They're liars and murderers. A detail I never pieced together before is that this contract was likely set up by the company. The same thing that they did with the Azani Blackheart job. They probably contacted the Fighters Guild to clear out the mine, a secluded dungeon that's right in their backyard, and sprung the trap as soon as the faction was far enough inside. They likely did it to further lower the guild's numbers, and to swoop in for the glory once the matter was settled. With nothing more for me at Forsaken Mine, I left the area and informed Modron of the grave news.
You're back. What have you found out? Dead! Dead! What happened? A journal? Let me see that. Blackwood Company. Bastards! Rank amateurs! I don't like to think how Velena is going to take this news. He was my responsibility. I'll be the one to tell her. I want you to lay low for a while. Talk to Azan or grow cash. Let me deal with Velena. You've still got a career ahead of you.
This act is going to bring on war between the factions, but first, Velena needs to hear about her son. I can only imagine what the fallout is going to be like. This was a massive hit to the guild, and we lost a lot of good members. The ranks are thinning, and it feels like the Blackwood Company is only growing. The following events are going to kick off the end phase of the storyline, and we'll get up close and personal with the rivaling faction. Modron's orders were pretty clear. While he deals with the repercussions, I'm to continue with other guild contracts. Fast traveling to Anvil and seeking out Azan, he unfortunately becomes the bearer of bad news.
Everybody's talking about the Prophet. I've got one last contract
attack on
for
the
you.
chapel,
First, though,
people
a
are
bit of bad
inclined
news.
to believe almost
Orain
anything.
spoke with Velena about your last mission. She didn't take the news well. Orain has been expelled. And I'm sorry to do this, but you've been demoted to Defender. You'll be fine, though. I've only got one more thing on my plate for you, but it's an important one. The stone of St. Alessia has been stolen from Bruma Chapel. I don't know if you're religious, but a lot of folks are, and the stone is important. Talk to Sirach in Bruma. He'll fill you in on the details.
Orain expelled, and I've been demoted by 2 ranks. With Modron out of the picture, where does that leave the fight with the Blackwood Company? Will Velena take up arms against her son's murderers, or is she going to stand idly by? Only time will tell, but for now, I have to recover the Stone of St. Alessia and attempt to restore my honor. Traveling to Bruma, I sought out the chapel healer.
Greetings, my friend. You must be from the Fighters Guild. We appreciate your help. It's said the stone was blessed by Alessia herself. And while it remains in our possession, no harm may come to our church. The relic was stolen from us not long ago. A group of men was seen leaving the chapel the night the stone was stolen. We believe they were bandits. From all accounts, there were 4 or 5 of them, and they've been seen heading east on the road. Please, find the stone of St. Alessia.
Exiting the city and following the quest marker east, I laid eyes on a lone Khajiit who was standing out in the open. He was within eyeshot of the city. Surely, if he was one of the bandits, he would have been long gone by now, right?
So I assume you're the one who's been sent to track us down. Damn stone was more trouble than it was worth. We stole it. I won't try to hide that now. I'm all that's left now, though. We may have stolen the stone, but we weren't the last ones to do it. The lot of us got jumped by a bunch of ogres. Partial to pretty gems, it seems. I'm the only one that survived. If you want a stone, head to Cedar. It's not far from here. Here, I'll mark it on your map. Now just leave me.
You gain very little by eliminating Kashar. However, I've always let him live. So this time, I decided to serve up some justice for the Chapel of Talos. From the chapel's location, Cedar is approximately 730 steps to the east. On my way there, I crossed through Knoll Mountain, which is a spot I'll be coming back to later, as well as Frostcrag Spire. Arriving at the Ayleid Ruin and going on inside, the dungeon is rather small. I ended up battling against 7 savage ogres. In previous playthroughs, likely due to leveling in challenge build scenarios, I've always had difficulty facing the beasts. They're level to the player and tend to hit incredibly hard. I've almost always just booked it to the stone, snagged it, and ran back out, which is probably still the most efficient option. However, for this Fighters Guild experience, I was able to hold my ground really nicely, lure the brutes in with some arrows, work on my blade skill with melee combat, then close out the fight with destruction magic. In no time, I was able to stroll on over to the Stone of St. Alessia, take it with no issues, and then freely walk on out of Sidor. Relic in hand, I delivered it back to Sirach and Bruma.
Have you found it? Have you brought back the Stone of St. Alessia? Ah, you found it. I can't thank you enough. Your work is greatly appreciated. Here, take these. I wish I could give you more.
As a bonus reward, Sirach gifts me 3 strong potions of healing, which will be perfect for my adventures down the line. Returning to Anvil, I reported my success to Azan.
What's the status of the Stone of St. Alessia? Have you returned it to Sirach yet? Well done. You've put in good work for me. I only wish I had more. Things are a little lean right now, as I'm sure you know. Here's your payment.
Either Azan's being watched, or he's really worried about something on the eastern wall. With that, thus ends the quest, the Stone of St. Alessia. Chatting with Azan once more, he still seemed super frightened of something that was just out of my view. This is where he tells me though that he has no more contracts. That last one officially wrapped up all of the quests that were given out by the Red Guard. Now it's time to visit Burrs and see if he has anything. Jokes aside on Azan, most of the time NPCs act weird like that when there's another NPC around. It could be because of Mojo the dog, but he was standing behind me, not to my left. In any case, I sat out the orc in Shadenhall and received my next set of orders.
I assume you're back for more work, because I don't see a big need to chat with you. I've got more for you. Important stuff, actually. You need to go talk to Lord Rugdumph. He's an orcish noble, a fine man. Our families go back a bit. Anyway, his daughter is missing. Head to his estate and talk to him. Find his daughter, and mind your manners. I don't want you embarrassing me. A fine model of an orcish woman. Now go find her, and don't be rude, or she'll rip your ears off.
Lord Rugdumph's estate is located directly north of Shadenhall and east of Sidor. This quest used to be one of my favorites for the Fighters Guild storyline, and that was because of Lord Rugdumph himself. To me, his line delivery made him one of, if not the funniest NPCs in all of Oblivion. However, with orcs having their voices changed in the remake, would his humor still hold up?
Speaketh you on? Ah, you are from the Fighters Guild, I resume. Good show. I am Lord Rugdumph Groshurkak. Let us conversate on the Lady Rugbutt. I fear that whilst out rock-picking, she was apprehensive, stolen away. My suspicion is that ogres have abjected her. Please search to the east of my sprawling abode. They have been known to vacate these premises. I am most gracious and truly woeful. Horrible creatures, replete with horror and evil. They roam freely eastward of the estate. I look forward to you exterminizing them.
The new Lord Rugdumph is still good, but I think the comedic elements were lost with this one. Before, you could tell that the orc was trying too hard to sound like a noble, and his lack of confidence is what sold the performance. With this one, you don't really get that unsureness or self-doubt. In any case, this quest is really straightforward. Lady Rugbutt is about 100 steps east of the house. She's surrounded by 3 ogres, and the only thing the player needs to do is eliminate the group of brutes. In the original game, I remember having a lot of difficulty pulling the ogres away. I'd attempt to aggro onto one of them, only to have all 3 run over and overwhelm my character. However, in the remake, it was really simple. Similar to the previous quest, start the fight with some arrows, switch to a blade for melee, and finish off with destruction. In no time, the beasts were all dead, and I can now talk with Lady Rugbutt.
Glad you killed those things. I'd have done it myself, but apparently that's not ladylike. Let's get back to my father.
Depending on how well you can handle yourself in a fight, this quest might be one of the shortest ones for the Fighters Guild. The whole thing takes place in a small area, and it's as simple as speaking to 2 NPCs and defeating 3 nearby enemies.
He is most pleased. Ifide. You found my belabored daughter. I will tell Birds Grokash about your indentures. Take this. It has been passed in my family for many generators.
As a bonus reward, the Lord gifts me his 2-handed claymore, Rugdump's sword. Its appearance is unique, and at my current level, it has the enchantments of Absorb Speechcraft on strike for 5 points for 5 seconds, and Silence on strike for another 5 seconds. It's a neat blade to have, but for now, I won't be using it as it doesn't fit with my playstyle. I've always loved the subtle storytelling behind the Rugdump family. They were once these stereotypical orcs, barbarians who were deadly with axes. After coming into a bit of wealth, Rugdump attempts to change his personality to that of an upperclassman's. Meanwhile, those same traits are being imposed on Lady Rogbutt, but she retains her strong, independent warrior-like attitude. Returning to Burrs and Shadenhall, I reported my success.
You got her back in one piece. Good work. I've always liked that girl. May have to look her up sometime. Here's your payment.
With that, there's one final contract that needs to be completed. Then, that's it. Thus ends the quest, The Noble's Daughter. Speaking with Burrs again, I asked for further orders.
Here for more work? I've got one more contract for you. You've done good work, and you deserve better than your current rank. I'm restoring your previous rank of Guardian. Congratulations. I've got one more for you, Meat. I assume you can handle it. I need you to investigate some disappearances at Harlun's Watch. Some folks are missing in Harlun's Watch. We've been contracted to find out what's happened. Speak to Durana Thelis for all the details. Get going.
I've always found it interesting with how quickly the player is able to reach the rank of Guardian again. After being demoted by 2 ranks, it only took 2 contracts to get back to the original position. It makes me feel like the initial demotion carries very little weight to it, like a slap on the wrist. Albeit, the player isn't really the one at fault for Varanus' death, so I suppose it makes some sense. The settlement of Harlun's Watch is practically connected to Shadenhall. It's directly south of the city, and Durana Thelis isn't hard to locate either.
Hello. You're from the Fighters Guild, I presume. Oh, it's good that you've arrived. We need your help with some disappearances. Some folks reported seeing strange lights near the old swampy cave. We sent folks to investigate them, but haven't seen them since. We need help. They started appearing a few nights ago. Odd, flickering lights. In the morning, there was nothing to see, but they were there at night.
Swampy Cave is southeast of Harlun's Watch, and again, a very short walk away. This is a quest that I've always had difficulty with though, and it seems like it's just as tricky every time, no matter the playthrough. Those odd flickering lights that Thelis spoke of are will-o'-the-wisps. There's 3 of them to be exact, and they're hard enemies to face because they sap the life force right out of you. Their 2 attacks are Rack, which absorbs health and magicka for 30 points on touch, as well as Mind Numb, which absorbs health and magicka for 8 points for 5 seconds, and damages intelligence and willpower for 2 points. It got so bad that I decided to run back to Harlun's Watch and add to their problems. I let the settlers join in on the fight and thought that they could at least handle one on their own. It turns out that I thought wrong. As a spellcaster, these things are really difficult to deal with. It's easy if you keep your distance and attack via bow or ranged spell, but that brings up the next problem. It might be unique to the remake, but the Wisps have a terrible hitbox. I know my aim is bad, but in my opinion, this was pretty ridiculous. Shots that were fully lined up would fly under, lower, or off to the side, completely missing my target. It doesn't help either that I was fighting on a hillside, so it wasn't exactly easy nailing that exact angle. After a super lengthy battle and sacrificing everyone at Harlun's Watch except for Thelis, I was finally ready to enter Swampy Cave. Going down the entranceway and making a right, the mystery was finally solved. Piled up on the rocky ground were all of the corpses and remains of the settlers. Standing in front of the mass grave was a swamp troll. The journal indicates that the citizens were pulled into the cave via the flashy lights of the will-o'-the-wisps and then mauled to death by the beasts. An unfortunate end to their lives, but truly natural selection at its finest. The rest of the quest has the player exploring the remainder of Swampy Cave and eliminating the rest of the swamp trolls. While the will-o'-the-wisps outside were a spellcaster's nightmare, trolls are a mage's daydream. A somewhat powerful fire spell can easily two-shot the beasts. Granted, Swampy Cave is a little confusing to navigate, as it has tunnels that are interconnecting, making it easy to get turned around. My biggest issue was getting lost in the dungeon. There's also a total of 15 trolls to defeat, so if you don't have some sort of fire attack in your arsenal, it might make for a more challenging time. Once wrapped up in here, I left the cave and relayed the grave news to Thalos.
Please see if you can't find our friends who have disappeared. Oh no, you believe trolls killed them? That's horrible. Good that you've killed all the trolls, though. Please take this, with our gratitude.
As a little bonus reward, Jorana gives me the Mind and Body Ring. It reflects damage for 4% and fortifies strength for 4 points. Not the most useful thing for my current build, but there could be a time and a place for it. Now, all that's left to do is report back to Burrs.
Trolls, huh? And drawn in by will-o'-the-wisps? There's some lousy luck for you. Well, here's your payment. Afraid to say, I don't have any more contracts for you. I don't think Azan has any either. You did pretty good work, Meat. You've cleared every contract we've got on the books. That's some good work. You're now promoted to Champion of the Fighters Guild. You outrank me now, so there's certainly no more I can do for you. You might check with an old friend of yours, though. Rumor has it that Orion's looking for you. You didn't hear it from me, though. Good work and good luck.
That's it, the end of the standard Fighters Guild contracts. There's no more work for me from either of the guild stewards. However, it seems like Orion is still keeping the fight against the Blackwood Company alive. With that, thus ends the quest, Mystery at Harlun's Watch. It's here that the player enters the home stretch of the questline. Burrs and Azan have essentially been removed from the remaining story. Chatting with Burrs once more, he says that the reason there are a lack of contracts right now is because of the Blackwood Company. They've completely dominated the market and have left the Fighters Guild high and dry. Burrs also reiterates that Modron wants to see me as soon as possible. I really like the subtle notion that even though Orain has been expelled from the faction, all of its current members still keep a line of communication open with him. He may be gone, but the respect and understanding runs so deep that they're still willing to risk their own careers for him.
To bring them down, I need more information. My sources tell me they're trying to expand, and they've set up camp in Glade Mist Cave. I want you to go there and capture Ajum Kajin, one of their leaders. Bring him back to me. I'd like to spend some time talking to him. He's the one in charge of this expansion. I know he's a high-ranking member of the group. An Argonian mage, from what I hear.
It's good to see that Orain hasn't given up the fight. There's still so much work to be done, and the Blackwood Company needs to pay for their actions. I used to think that it was risky business for the player to work with Modron, especially considering Velena Danton lives just down the street. However, I think at this point, there's nothing really to lose. Unemployment within the guild is going to continue to skyrocket, and soon, the faction is probably going to have to disband. Glade Mist Cave is a fair walk northeast of Coral, just off of the Orange Road. Going on in, it didn't take long for me to find some Blackwood Company guards. Now, I've never had an issue with this mission. In fact, I've always found it to be on the easier side. 7 ruffians spaced out, and several of them are archers. However, this time round, in the remake, I had my butt handed to me more times than I could count. No matter how I engaged with the first set of enemies, I somehow managed to aggro the entire dungeon. I could roll in for melee combat, pull them in with magic, or stealth archer my way through. It didn't matter. Every single guard was alerted to my presence and rushed to my location. I wasn't skilled enough, nor was I using the right build to take on 7 warriors at once. After dying a couple of times, I had to go about this encounter more strategically. The strategy was as simple as exiting the dungeon, praying that only 1 or 2 followed me out, and then taking care of them before repeating the cycle. It's pretty basic and fundamental, but hey, it did the trick. Almost every single guard in the dungeon was at the entrance area, and once the doorway was cleared, the rest was as easy as walking through some tunnels. I leisurely wandered through some chambers and corridors, looting chests and containers. Finally, I arrived at Ajum Kajin's little hideout and confronted the Argonian mage.
What do you want? Get away from me. Fine, fine. I'll come with you. My guards are dead. You win. For now.
I've always loved how easy that conversation goes, and how willing he is to follow the player. Even when you leave Glademist Cave, I'm surprised he doesn't just bolt off into the Great Forest. It's funny to see Ajum Kajin walk side by side with you into Coral. Make it a little hard for me. Run away or fight back, something like that.
You've got him. Let's talk about Ajum Kajin. You've brought him back. Good. I want to know the size of their forces and who is leading them. I also want to know the source of their strength. Do what you must to make him talk. If you can smooth talk him, fine. If you need to rough him up, so be it. But don't kill him. We need him to talk. Now, go tell him to sit down. If he tries to get up, I'll kill him myself.
What do you want? Is it time for torture? Ha! Do your worst. Fine. You don't scare me, beat me, torture me. I'll never talk to you.
In the original Oblivion, Kajin has a health bar that goes down with every hit. I've always been terrified of killing him and failing the quest, if that's actually a thing, so I usually take it easy when beating him. However, in the remake, there's no HP attached to him, so I was just letting my fists fly.
Yes, enough. What? Oh, I'll tell you what you want. We are over 100 strong now. We grow by the day. No, I will not betray him. I will not tell you. Never. I would rather die. I will tell you nothing.
Slapping the lizard around some more, he made one final confession before revealing his trap card.
Stop, please. What is it? What more do you want? Forgive me, my master. It is Rizikar. He leads us, and he will have your head. He will kill you all. Nothing more. I chose death. Long live the Blackwood Company.
Looking inside of his inventory, he had a cursed ring called the Blackwood Ring of Silence. It deals 150 points to the wearer, which explains his spontaneous combustion.
Damn, killed himself. Must have had some sort of magic item we didn't notice. You got some information out of him, which is good. We can use it. Here, take this. It might help you sometime.
Orain gives me the Amulet of Interrogation. It fortifies hand-to-hand skill by 6 points, as well as speechcraft by 6 points. With that, thus ends the quest, Information Gathering. I spoke again with Orain to see what our next move was.
We've got some work to do if we're going to stop the Blackwood Company. While the information we got from the Argonian was valuable, we need more. I want you to infiltrate them. See how they work from the inside. I want you to get to Leowen and join the Blackwood Company. Find the secret of their success. You'll be on your own. Steer clear of me and all of your Fighters Guild brothers. It'll be rough going, but you can do it.
How easy could it really be to join the company? As simple as the Fighters Guild, where you just sign up with a steward, or perhaps something a little more complicated, like an initiation or recommendations. Arriving at Leowin and stepping inside of their hall, things here seemed really clean and organized. There were several members in the common area, and all of them were either Argonian or Khajiit. Ascending upstairs and following the quest marker, I was brought over to someone named Jitum Z.
What is it you want? Come for a job? You wish to join the Blackwood Company, do you? I think I've heard of you, though. Fighters Guild, aren't you? Done many jobs for them recently? Yes. What makes you want to join us? No jobs? There is much work to be done here in Cyrodiil. The Blackwood Company is more than willing to do it. You don't look strong enough to me, though. A bit inexperienced, perhaps. Still, maybe we will find work for you. You may join, for now. Since you seem eager to get started, follow me to the training area. We've got a mission you might want a piece of.
Interesting. I guess it really was as simple as signing up with the guild. Following Jitum Z, he leads me down into the training hall. Without trying to spoil anything, I've always thought that this was a great opportunity for the company to trap and ambush the player. The layout of the training hall is perfect, and the other members being down here with me makes it all the better. However, that would not allow the player to learn about the faction and how they operate, exactly as how we're about to see.
The four of you have a mission. The settlement of Water's Edge has contracted us to take care of some goblins in the area. Apparently, they've been giving the locals some trouble. Shouldn't be a problem for you four, though. The three of you should be prepared by now. But as you see, we have a new recruit with us as well. I'll need a word with you, recruit. You'll need to be careful on this mission. Sometimes new recruits have complications. They are not used to our methods. Take this. It will increase your skills in battle. We use it often. It is a good thing. This? Why, it is a gift from the swamps of Argonia. Sap of the Hist. A present from my homeland. The Hist are generous to us. So generous. Don't be stupid. We have returned with the Hist itself. One beautiful Hist who gives her gifts to all the company. The clever mages made it possible. Magic and iron. But this is not the time to talk. You drink your gift and go with your new brothers.
If you didn't remember, Water's Edge is the settlement where I helped out Amelion by retrieving her grandfather's gear and paying off her father's gambling debt. I guess in between that contract and this moment, goblins have overrun the little village and the company needs to take care of it. Certainly an odd pre-contract ritual though. Chugging back a bottle of Hist sap and rolling into a fight. Does this elixir buff offensive stats, perhaps defensive or magical skills? A combination of two or possibly all three? The only way to find out is by sculling the remedy and seeing what happens. Swigging the solution, the scene cuts and I'm automatically brought over to Water's Edge. I have no idea how I made it here, but the other three company members are with me too. Together, we charged to the center of the settlement. Lo and behold, there were a lot of goblins here. More than I've ever seen at a time. The four of us made quick work of them though. Once the exterior was cleared, I was then ordered to go inside of the houses and kill the remaining creatures. Entering Marie Alouette's home, there was a lone goblin skulking around, but it didn't seem to be bothered by my presence. One blast with a destruction spell and it was down for the count. Upon exiting the home, my character blacked out again. Waking up, I was somehow in Modron's house, all the way up in Coral.
Good. You're finally awake. I was beginning to get a bit concerned about you. That's what I was getting ready to ask you. You were found unconscious on the streets in Leowin. Some of your guild brothers found you and brought you to me. Good to see some of them think like we do. Now, what happened out there? They're using Hist sap? And they claim to have brought a tree into Cyrodiil? Amazing! I can't imagine what the sap might do to non-Argonians. I'm not surprised you were found the way you were. I imagine those men have built up a tolerance to the stuff. I'm concerned about Water's Edge. I want you to go back there. Make sure the company hasn't ousted the residents. Lay low. Amazing. And insane. I'll look into it further. I'm worried about those people. The Blackwood Company can't be trusted with their lives and homes. Get there and look into it.
In the original game, you don't get teleported out of Water's Edge until you either leave the area or kill every single goblin. I was surprised that the remake booted me out prematurely. Arriving back at the settlement, I was in for the shock of a lifetime. Not a single goblin's body was in sight. In fact, the only corpses laying around were those belonging to the farm animals and the residents themselves.
This can't be happening. This is horrible. My poor Vienna. Poor, sweet Vienna. What monsters would do this? How can this have happened? I wish I knew. They're all dead, all of them. Even my poor, sweet Vienna. You're the one who helped her, aren't you? You helped her pay my debt. I heard about you. She never hurt anyone. Who could have done this? What monster would do this? It wasn't the goblin. It had to have been bandits. But why? We have nothing. Please go. I must bury our dead.
Now everything makes sense. The company's ability to take on less than favorable tasks, why they senselessly slew my guildmates in Forsaken Mine, and why I thought I was killing goblins when in fact it was the settlers. The Hist sap acts as a hallucinogenic.
Well, what did you find at Water's Edge? No, the entire town. I realize you must be disgusted with yourself. I'm sorry for that. It was the Hist sap, though, not you. We now know the threat this group poses, perhaps better than they themselves know it. We must take decisive action now.
With that, thus ends the quest, Infiltration. Now, there's one final mission left for the Fighters Guild storyline. Speaking with Modron, I inquire about how we proceed from here.
It is time for decisive action. I have one more duty for you to perform. It is clear to me what must be done. The Hist tree must be destroyed. This tree is the source of our problems. It is an abomination of nature, and it must be destroyed. As long as the Blackwood Company has access to the sap, we are all in danger. I fear they no longer know what they do. You must find a way to destroy the Hist, though I can imagine Reza Kar will have it well guarded. Expect an unfriendly welcome at their hall. He's a warrior, a battle-hardened mercenary who's spent time all over Tamriel. He'll keep his prized tree locked away. You'll need to find his key.
I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it. It never made any sense to me as to why Modron doesn't come with the player to the Blackwood Company's hall. He has absolutely nothing else better to do. He's not even in the guild anymore. Why he can't aid me in finally taking down the faction he so desperately wants to destroy just falls completely flat. Arriving at their HQ and heading on inside, it seems that the company's already onto me.
You are no longer one of us. Fighters Guild spy, traitor. Your life is forfeit.
If Modron won't help me out, there's one group that's always willing to lend a hand. The citizens of Leyawiin hate the Blackwood Company almost as much as the Fighters Guild does. So, luring the members outside, I made the fight a little more even. Beggars, middle class, upper class, guards, Mythic Dawn agents, everyone was pulled into this group effort. It was a good thing too, because I don't think I would have lasted in a fight with 3 or more of their members. Once the initial wave of company guards was defeated, the rest was smooth sailing. Using a key found on Jafazir's body, I was able to gain access to Jedamzi's room. There, I ran into the Argonian and made quick work of him via my destruction magic. On his body was Rizakar's room key. Ascending to the 3rd level, I gained access to the leader's quarters and battled the Khajiit. I've always thought it was a missed opportunity to not have dialogue for Rizakar. He is arguably the prime antagonist for this whole questline, the leader of the Blackwood Company, and the reason why dozens of guildmates have been slain, including countless other civilians. I'd love to know the reasoning behind that choice, but I can't help but think it might be due to cut/unfinished content, like so many other minor details that were lost during final development. Maybe too, the devs just didn't think giving a personality to the big baddie at the end of the questline was necessary. Who knows? Rizikar was a worthy opponent though. He gave me a run for my money, and I found myself slamming back health potions. However, as I've learned through my challenge playthroughs, potions win fights, and soon, the Khajiit boss was laying dead on the floor. Snagging the key from his corpse, I was able to gain access to the final zone of their headquarters, the basement. Going on in, I was brought to a small room that contained the Hist tree. It was hooked up to various machines, and it seems like the company found a way to mass produce the elixir. The tree was being guarded by 2 Argonians. Hears voices in the air and sings like thunder. Hears voices was simple enough to defeat. However, sings like thunder was a real problem. He kept spam attacking me with his staff of paralyzing burst, and I genuinely couldn't move anywhere. Combining that with his summoned skeleton, and in no time my character was dead. Trying the fight again, this time I targeted Sings Like Thunder first, defeated him, and then went for Hears Voices in the air. This was a much better strategy, and the whole battle was over in less than 30 seconds. Once ready, I picked up 2 loose pipes at the back of the room, a simple enough task that took me ages to figure out in my first playthrough, and lodged them into the moving machines. This caused the Hist tree to catch fire and burn down, forever putting an end to the Blackwood Company's twisted methods. Upon leaving the basement, the true final boss of the questline was waiting for me outside.
You've ruined everything! Why? Why? I had a job. I had a home. You've taken it all! I'll kill you for this!
The battle of the century, the player versus Maglier, the fight to end it all. In actuality, this is probably one of the easier, significant NPC matchups in the whole storyline. Maglier fights using an iron short sword and some standard Blackwood Company armor. He's placed 3 levels above the player, but his gear never changes, so he doesn't hit very hard. In this instance, him and I would have been better off duking it out with rocks, as our blades were inflicting slivers of damage. Finally, I was the one to deliver the killing blow, and that officially puts an end to all the known assailants for the Blackwood Company. Leaving Leowyn and traveling to Coral, I informed Modron that the enemy faction had been taken down.
Have you done it? Have you destroyed that foul tree? Well done. With that tree gone, the Blackwood Company is just another band of mercenaries. Cyrodiil is a safer place for what you've done. I want you to take this. May it serve you well. Now, you should tell Velena Daunton what has happened. Perhaps she will understand what it is we have done. I believe our work is now finished. You are a fine soldier, my friend. You've made me proud. It belonged to an ancestor, Orain Bearclaw, but was lost for centuries. It was found only when Malakath wrongly believed my family line ended. It was returned to me by a stranger from my homeland, Morrowind. Wear it proudly. Perhaps you can help restore the glory of my family's name.
As a reward for all of my efforts, Modron hands me the helm of Orain Bearclaw. It's a unique looking headpiece and has the enchantments of Fortify Agility and Endurance for 10 points each. Knowing the origins of the helm and its importance in Morrowind, it makes receiving this item all the more special to me. Rushing over to the guild hall, I sat out Daunton and informed her of everything that's transpired.
What is it you want? You were told to stay out of my sight. I'll assume you're here to tender a resignation. You've done what? I had no idea it had gotten so bad. How is it you accomplished all of this? With Orion, he was dismissed. I should expel you now. But no, it isn't Orion who is to blame. I fear it is I. I love the Fighters Guild and all its members, perhaps to a fault. I fear my concern for them has made me blind to what's been happening around me. If it were not for you and Orion, I dare not think it. Now we must speak about what you've done and how it will affect any further advancement. Because of your actions, I am hereby stripping you of your rank of champion. You were reckless, foolhardy, and dangerous to yourself and the guild. They were also brave and necessary. Because of this, I am hereby naming you Master of the Fighters Guild, effective immediately. The guild has passed me by. You are its future. Take your responsibilities seriously. I wish you luck. You still have many duties to perform. Your first duty should be to name your second in command. I can think of no one better for this job than Modron Orion. Should he accept the position, you would be well served. Rely on his wisdom and experience more than I did, my friend. Good luck.
In a turn of unforeseen events, Daunton retired from the guild and put me in charge. This was due to my actions and willingness to step up for the faction, something Velena hasn't been able to do for a long time.
Did you speak with Velena? How did she react? Ha! Made you guildmaster? Amazing! You earned it, though you'll likely muck it all up. So, what are you going to do with your newfound rank? Me? Pah! I was just getting used to being retired. You can see how good my painting is getting. I'm an old man. I've done my time. Then again, someone has to keep you in line. Make sure you don't bring the guild down around our ears. I'll do it, Guildmaster. Just come to me when you want to assign duties to the guild. I'll make sure they get done.
With the downfall of the Blackwood Company, my ascension to Guildmaster, and Orin becoming my second in command, thus ends the quest, the Hist, and that officially wraps up the Fighters Guild storyline. Before signing off, there are a few matters that need tending.
Well, you're in charge. You won't be doing the contracts, but the master is always paid a percentage of the guild's monthly take. Check with me monthly to give orders for the month. I'll make it happen. If I don't hear from you, I'll follow the previous month's orders. You can find your monthly stipend in the master's chest upstairs, along with anything we find that you might find useful. Here's the key. So, what are your first orders, Guildmaster? That's fine. We'll still get some solid revenue, and pick up some new recruits along the way. Not a bad strategy. More revenue means more gold in all our pockets. More men means that we're likely to have more spare equipment around here.
Modron explained it best. Once a month, in-game, I check the guild chest and take the treasures inside. That's about as much after-game content as the faction has. There are no longer any contracts to do, nor storylines to explore. Something that I've always had a gripe with. However, it's also something that gets altered in Skyrim, so I can't complain too much about it. Focusing on recruitment means higher chances for better items in the chest, yet less gold. More contracts means more gold, yet less items. Finally, an equal focus means a chance at decent items and the middle ground for septims. The guild's priorities can be changed at any point after a simple discussion with Modron. Beyond that, that's about it. I've done my best to share with you my feelings for the questline during this video, and in my original playthrough, I gave my overall thoughts and opinions. The Fighters Guild questline gets a lot of flack from players. It's widely considered inferior to storylines like the Shivering Isles, the Dark Brotherhood, and the Thieves Guild. Say what you will about the story and each individual mission. While I enjoyed the progression and pacing, there are elements to the plot that I would change. Like, for example, Modron's involvement during the end phase, he should be Guildmaster and not the player, the other guild hall's involvement in the story, Rizakar's impact on the Blackwood Company, etc. I think where this storyline shines, though, is through its character arcs, which in my opinion are among the best in the whole game. Modron, Maglier, Velena, etc., even Burzgrokash and Shadenhall. Everyone had an amazing personality change and trait progression. They either go from loving you to hating your guts, or vice versa, but in a tasteful manner. It's through actions that make sense. The means justify the emotions. Modron and Burz step all over the player, believing them to be another grunt of the guild. But when the player proves their worth and usefulness, they begin to change their outlook. We even go as far as befriending Modron in the end and making him our second in command. Then you have the opposite end, Velena and Maglier. One had general respect for the player, while the other was only a work friend. After getting her son killed, Velena outright despises the player, and through your actions in defeating the Blackwood Company, she begins to realize how she steered the guild in the wrong direction and attempts to make amends. On the other hand, Maglier was the perfect example of a grunt getting caught in the crossfire. He only wanted to support his family and hopped to the job that had the better pay and security. Can you really blame him for following the work and doing what he was told by drinking the sap? The company lied to so many of its members, and there's a chance he had no idea that the tree elixir was a hallucinogenic. He probably just assumed it enhanced his skills in battle. Once the player took away his livelihood, he sought out revenge, and his life ended in a tragic manner. I know that these character arcs seem so simple, but this might be one of the few questlines where we get to see multiple NPCs' personalities evolve with the world around them, a trait that I feel is absent in so many of the other storylines. I'd love to know your thoughts on the Fighters Guild, and until next time, keep on adventuring.